Locke, President and CEO of Marimaca Copper. We've delivered a recent resource upgrade, which has doubled the size of our resource, and very recently announced a new strategic partner to help us with the development of the project.
Hayden, good to see you. I think you're just back from your travels in Chile. Everyone down there must be delighted with Mitsubishi coming on board.
Yeah, very happy. It's been a pretty long process and quite a comprehensive and rigorous process for the team. So they're happy that all the hard work has paid off. And, as I said to them last week, out of the frying pan into the fire, we've now got hard work ahead of us.
You do. It's not just give me the money and sit back. Let's just remind people of the structure of that deal. It's $20 million. What do they get for that?
So it's a pretty simple transaction, actually. It's more of a financial transaction. They're taking 5% in the head code at a slight premium to our 20-day VWAP and 11% premium. And then they have an option to go to 9.5% or thereabouts at a price of $5.60 a share. This is not a financial investor, so really that warrant indicates the price that they're sort of thinking that this asset would be a good investment at. So it's a pretty solid investment for us.
Right. Okay. So been done at a premium, which is great. But as you say, these diligence processes are long and drawn out. They must have liked what they saw. Can you give us a sense of what their strategy is? Why would they come to Marimaca? They're invested in some pretty big copper plays out there. So why come into a sort of relatively small company?
Yeah, it's quite a remarkable transaction, actually. And I was joking with my counterpart at Mitsubishi that his phone's going to be ringing off the hook with bankers introducing new projects to him because it is a material change in Mitsubishi Corp's strategy. They have historically liked to be significant minority investors in very, very large assets behind the likes of BHP and Anglo American and Co. And so this really marks quite an interesting change for them. I think what we learned during the process, and the process, as you alluded to, has been going on for more than 12 months. We've done a very comprehensive diligence program with Mitsubishi. And what we've learned is there is a dearth of new copper projects, and they're very aware of that. And so they're all having to look at projects that they historically may not have looked at. But there's a second angle at play, which is sustainability angle, which is very important. And we have incredible sustainability credentials already built up through our work on the ground, but also the potential to be one of the lowest carbon intensity copper projects globally on account of our location up in the Atacama Desert and our SX-V processing to copper cathode. So there's a whole raft of reasons why they would consider what is historically for them a smaller project. But our belief is we're one of the standouts, and they've made several comments that they had screened more than 500 projects and settled on a very short list of projects that they thought that they were interested to invest in and were actionable, of which we were one.
Right. I mean, you talk about the resource update recently, over 200 million tons now. Whatever that was, 44%, 45% increase, which is great. So it's of a certain size now, which starts to be of interest to these kind of large majors. What is the expectation of you going through the DFS? Are we kind of done on building up the size, and now this is really about deliverability, and we can worry about upside, in the future? I mean, what have they asked of you?
Interestingly, they're very focused on us delivering the permits and the definitive feasibility study. In their view, this is a near-term copper project that should be in production much quicker than the vast majority of the peers that we're compared to. So there is a strong focus on this investment being on delivery of those permits and DFS. But they have carved out some money for us to continue our regional exploration, to continue looking for shallow oxides to extend that mine life further. And we actually had a renowned geologist on site 2 weeks ago doing another review to help us with our ongoing targeting campaigns. And so we'll probably do a little bit of targeting work in the near future and spend a little bit of money on that regional exploration. And of course, the sulfide potential at depth. We're still awaiting on the results for that.
Right. Okay. So give us a timeline there. When's the DFS in?
So we'll be aiming to kick off all of the work streams in September, October of this year. So we're in the final planning and tendering phase now. Assuming we kick off the permitting in September, we will be submitting our permits towards the end of Q1, early Q2 next year. That's the sort of aggressive target. and then the aggressive target on the bankable feasibility study is the middle of next year. That then gives us 6 months of financing discussions and getting in line all the banks and the export credit agencies and things, and hopefully we'll be in a position to get a positive environmental approval in early 2025 to commence construction, which is pretty exciting.
Right. Now, you've obviously been through a rigorous diligence process with Mitsubishi, and I guess a rigorous process of delivering the things that a company like Mitsubishi would want to see. But now you're kind of moving into that next phase where you're going to need to deliver the things that bankers will want to see in terms of that, in terms of the FID and the funding of the capex. Mitsubishi must be a significant pillar in there in terms of their validation of your project for sure. What are the other things that you feel they're going to need to see get over the line? I guess permitting and BFS. Anything else?
Well, the DFS is the fundamental technical document on which all of the models are built up. So that's by far the most important aspect for the banks to see. And so we will actually start early engagement with our banking syndicates or potential banking syndicates to then feed into our definitive feasibility study and the work that they want to do. I think the benefit we have is we have done a lot of the data collection. We have an enormous body of data already. Now it's about us presenting it in a way that makes it easiest for the technical consultants who work on behalf of the banks to review it. One of the big things that we'll be looking at now that we have, as I say, Mitsubishi as a partner is that opens up the access to the Japanese import-export credit agencies, which have very, very cheap debt. And you see often they're supportive of transactions where there is a large-scale Japanese trading house. But with that comes some equipment selection, not issues, but certainly things that we need to do to ensure that we have enough Japanese content, and potentially looking at some other ECAs as well. So we'll be doing a lot of that work in parallel with the definitive feasibility study. And then also we'll be looking at alternative sources of debt and finance as well. So I think there's going to be a lot of interlinked. There's a lot of circular movement around the next phase to make sure that everything interlinks and is seamless between the various.
It's kind of an interesting point you make there, and probably a broader point, not necessarily specific just to you, but the way that the Japanese ecosystem has been for a long time structured around making sure that they can capture lots of value. Have you seen the kind of the Western ecosystems kind of stepping up to play and understanding this? I mean, in terms of the conversations you must have had outside of just Mitsubishi, any European interest or North American interest, and was that a kind of coordinated effort?
Yeah, the export credit agencies have long been a great source of financing for mining projects, and especially in Africa where there is elevated geopolitical risk. You tend to see export credit agencies investing in mining projects. But with that comes a minimum requirement of content, as they call it, to come out of the country where the export credit agency is based. So this is not a new thing that we're talking about, but yes, especially out of the US, there has been a much stronger push for investment that promotes, industry in the US in particular, but also trade with the US. So there's a lot of opportunity there to get very cheap financing, and that's even more important now in a interest rate environment where that's going up.
Well, there we go. Hayden, appreciate the update. I appreciate you must be still a bit shattered from flying back from Chile. We will see you soon. What can we expect to be talking about next time we talk?
So we're doing quite a bit of work on metallurgical optimization and metallurgical enhancements, and it's still waiting on final results there, but I'm pretty pleased with what's occurred there. I think we'll see some further improvements in the project, so we'll hopefully put out some announcements on that. We're working quite closely with our technical partner on the Ray Rock plant, and they're rolling out some new technology, which is really, really interesting. So hopefully I'll put out something that will allow me to talk to you about that in some more detail, but that's very exciting. I think potentially a game changer for the industry. And then obviously the kickoff of all of our permitting and feasibility study work will lead to further announcements as we get closer to finally securing our environmental approval.